What's up guys, it's Bri. So today's video is going to be a little bit different than my usual videos. In today's video I am going to be talking to you guys about the SAKS channels and specifically how they ended. I'm sure all of you know, or most of you at least, the ones who actually watch the SAKS channels know that they recently ended, and the reason they ended is because the owner of the SAKS channels, Ian, did some very bad things to one of the members. And I'm here to tell you that what he did was he sexually assaulted and harassed and abused one of the members, and that member was me. I have been so scared to make this video because, I don't know, I just felt embarrassed that it happened to me, and I don't even know what to say, but it's out, so yeah. What happened to me happened a little less than a year ago, back in August, on a trip in Orlando, Florida. This is a very tough subject to talk about, especially on camera, because it's just, the only people that know that this happened to me and it happened to me are my parents, a few family members, and my closest friends. I haven't told anybody else. In fact, not too long ago, when this was all in court documents and being dealt with in a, I guess, federal matter, I wasn't allowed to tell anybody. I wasn't even allowed to tell my own family members. But recently, those federal matters ended because the lawyer that we hired kind of gave up on us. I'm not going to say their name because obviously I don't have their permission, but it happened and I can't help that it happened, and I tried. This is really hard to talk about because it happened less than a year ago, and it triggers something every time I mention anything about it inside of me, because I can't help it. Anybody who's been sexually harassed knows where I'm coming from. It was very traumatic and a very traumatic experience, and I haven't talked to a lot of people about this, and every time someone brings it up I try and change the subject because obviously I don't like to cry in front of people, and every time I talk about this I wind up crying, and it just hurts to cry about it. I've filmed this video 5 times but just haven't been able. This is my 5th time trying to film this video, and it's just, I just haven't been able to get out the right words. So I decided to try a 5th time since the year anniversary of it, I guess, is coming up. I just felt like I needed to get it out there and let you guys know what I went through, and you guys deserve to know, my supporters that is, and a few friends from the SAKS as well. You guys deserve to know what happened, and not only do you guys deserve to know everything that went down, but also I think I deserve some closure, and this is my closure. Now, I'm going to be starting from the beginning of when this all kind of happened, before, like, he sexually harassed me and did all this stuff. I'm going to go before that to when I guess he got the idea of it and I just couldn't tell, I guess. And that was at the meet and greet in 2017, I think. So at the meet and greet, it was when there were the original 7 Supergirls members, and I was just on 7 Fabulous Teens with my friends Laura and Gwyneth and Nicole and Charity and all of them, and Martha. And to the meet and greet, I wore this yellow dress. And so many people told me at the meet and greet that I looked like Belle. And I actually still have this yellow dress and I love it. But ever since all of this happened and the stuff that I found out that I didn't know before, I haven't been able to wear that dress anywhere because it just brings back bad memories for not only me, but my mother as well. It hurts my mom just as much as it hurts me, maybe even more. I don't want to bring my mom into this just because I love my mom so much, and I feel like she still needs time to recover from this. And my mom has always been there for me, especially after this happened. She was there for me and always will be there for me. She loves me just as much as I love her. And there were a few things put out on the internet saying stuff about my mom. For example, there was this one thing that said that she was on drugs when this happened. And I'm here to say that that is not true. And I was with her the entire time when the police talked to her about everything. And all accusations saying she was on drugs are false. And I'm not even just saying that because she's my mother. I'm saying that because it's the truth. My mother has never been on drugs, and she definitely wasn't at that time. No matter how sad she wasn't on drugs. And just those accusations were inappropriate and false and just really obnoxious, and it makes me mad that somebody could say that about my mom when all she was doing was being a mom, a good mom in that. But at the meet and greet, everybody was calling me Belle, and I recently found out, well, when everything happened, one of the members' parents of 7 Supergirls told me about how the manager was saying that I look like Belle and I look so cute, and saying that, like, just kept on bringing up that I looked good in the dress that I was wearing, and just really weird things about how I looked good in the dress and I looked like Belle. And also a few of the members mentioned that in a Skype call, because we all were in these groups, Skype accounts, I guess, like group chats, and he had to always be in the chat, which was so dumb in my opinion. He was commenting and chatting in the chat or whatever that is, saying that, oh, Brianna from 7 Fabulous Teens looked great, and just still talking about my dress, me and my dress, and it was just really inappropriate and creepy and disgusting. And I can't believe that I didn't know this before, honestly. So that was everything that happened at the meet and greet. And now we're going to move on to the next trip, which was in Orlando, Florida, when I was on 7 Perfect Angels. Now keep in mind, before every trip, the manager of the channels told everyone, well, first off, everybody got these sponsored outfits that were sponsored by Justice and Roxy and Gap, and I recently found out that there actually weren't any sponsors, clothing sponsors in that matter, the entire time that I was on, at least, but for the past 3 years as well. And he would have everybody send approval photos to him, and the approval photos, they had to be high quality, and you had to be facing this way to get a full body, like, front shot. Then you turned sideways, and then you turned backwards, and you had to send them into him. And he said that he would send them into the sponsors, but turns out those were just for his personal gain. But on this next trip, I don't think anything weird happened. that I immediately think of on this trip. It was my very first trip in general. The only thing I could think of is how we all had to wear swimsuits in 2 of the videos, I think. So there was this one video that we had to film, and it wound up getting taken down later because we were in bikinis. Should have never gone up in the first place, but basically we were filming that video for at least an hour. And the entire time we were in a freezing cold pool, and he would not let us get out and take a break during filming. The only thing he'd let us do was get in the hot tub that was only slightly warmer, which I think was disgusting. And we had to swim in a pool in these really skimpy bikinis that he said were sponsored, and they weren't even sponsored. They were for his personal liking, and that just disgusts me that he would take advantage of not only me but like all of the members like that. It's disgusting. Now, yes, he would film all of the videos, all the group videos that went up the channels, and he would really just take he would also take all the photos that were posted on the Instagram. And just the fact that he was behind that camera taking all of those photos that I now see as just really weird and creepy photos, it disgusts me to this day, and I just can't stop thinking about it. Alright, now we're going to go to the second trip, which was in Orlando, Florida. The first one actually wasn't in Orlando, Florida. It was in Anaheim, California. But this one was in Orlando, Florida. And at this point, I was on 7 Supergirls. So on this trip, once again, I don't think anything weird really happened. We had a few of the 7 gymnastics girls come in for this trip. And I think one of the 7 epic dancers, and I think this trip was probably the least weird trip out of all of them. Nothing happened at all except for being filmed in leotards and swimsuits, which was what happened on every trip, which it really grosses me out. So we're going to move on to the third trip, which was my second Supergirl trip, which took place in Phoenix, Arizona. So this trip was where it started to get really weird. So before this trip, the manager told me that my approval photos for a few of the outfits weren't approved, and that we needed to somehow make myself look flatter up top for the outfits. And basically he talked about how we needed to bandage my breasts down. And then he mentioned that he wouldn't be doing it. It would be the co-owner, who honestly, I'm not even going to throw her under the bus. She had nothing to do with anything that happened to me or any of the girls. She was just as clueless as we all were, and she's just doing her job. She had no choice. If she wouldn't have done her job, she most likely would have been fired, and you can't help it. So basically, after he told me that, I told him that it would be fine just as long as she was doing it. So then when I got to Phoenix, he asked to have a meeting with me in the group hotel room, and the group hotel room is basically this room that he reserves for members to hang out only. And what's weird is that he said no parents were allowed. The only person that was allowed in there was him, and his hotel room was right next door. And that was what it was like on every single trip. So he wanted to have a meeting with just me to talk about how everything would happen and how the binding would go down. And this only happened once. I was only bound one time on this trip, and it was by the female co-owner, and he was in the same room when it happened, but we'll get to that later. So basically, he just told me how it would happen, what day it would go on, and what outfit. So skip to the next day. This is the day of the binding. And basically he asked me to go in the room where she was at and they were going to bind me. So what she asked me to do, nobody saw anything. She asked me to put both arms in my shirt, and then she handed me the binding bandage, which is like the stretchy fabric, and to place it over my chest. And then she wrapped it around, and she didn't see anything. None of them saw anything, and he was actually in the room, and I asked him if he could leave while we did this, and he said no. Instead, he just stayed in the room and faced a wall, although my back was turned to him, so I couldn't even tell if he was facing the wall or not. So that was all that happened on that day, and of course we had to remove the binding, which just was simple enough. I walked back in the room and I removed it myself and handed it to her. Simple enough. That was probably the most creepy thing that happened on that trip. It seems like it's not that sinister at this point, but it gets worse. Also, another thing that happened on this trip was, at this time, I was being paired with one of the members to be a sponsored BFF. So they basically asked to have a meeting with me and the girl that I was being set up with, and they just told me and her that they were looking at us to be sponsored BFFs, and how they were wanting to take photos later at this lazy river or whatnot, because there was a water park in this hotel. Also, did I mention that all of these trips, none of the members were allowed to leave their hotel room unless it was to go film at the rental house. We weren't allowed to go to the pool that was in the hotel. We had to stay in our rooms or stay in the lounge room where you hang out at. So obviously me and this girl went and took pictures, and he was taking them obviously, and we were in our swimsuits, these skimpy looking swimsuits, and he took pictures of us, and it was really weird because we were like in swimsuits in public taking photos. And so then we went to this other area to take photos, and we were back in our normal clothes, and he asked her to sit on this ledge it was kind of like a countertop, and then he asked me to go and stand between her legs, which was the weirdest thing, and me and her were so uncomfortable, and it was obvious that we were both uncomfortable to each other. And yeah, and he also had us do another pose on this bench where he had her sit down and then me lay in her lap, which was weird, and I don't think any BFF would take pictures like that. And now we are skipping to dinner that night, and obviously he took more photos because he was trying to set us up as BFFs. So me and her had this great idea to put whipped cream on each other's nose for a, good photo opportunity. Because, you like to get photos because then you have a higher chance of going on the Instagram. And, it's just cool to see your face on the Instagram page because, you get comments, you can respond to people and be like, oh my god, you're so nice. Like the fans, it's just nice. So we put whipped cream on each other's noses for the fun of it, and he actually took a photo of it. But then he asked us to touch noses, and that was really weird. I don't think any BFF would touch noses like that. We were like this close to each other's face. It was the creepiest thing, especially since he asked us to do it, and it was just weird and creepy and gross, and I hated it. Another thing shows how careless he was. So there was this spa member that was on this trip. In fact, there were multiple spa members on this trip, and we were in Arizona. It's really hot and dry in Arizona, and you have to really load up on H2O so you don't dehydrate. So she basically had a heat stroke, and she passed out while filming, and she also threw up multiple times. And from what I found out and witnessed, he didn't care. In fact, he had her do it again. He had her film again, even after throwing up and passing out from a heat stroke. So now we're moving on to the final trip where everything happened in Orlando, Florida. So before I went on this final trip, he asked me to have a meeting with him on a Skype call. And in the Skype call, he talked to me about how I should transfer out of public school and start online school. And I had been in 2 online schools before that, and I hated them, and I loved public school, and it was so sad. But of course I said yeah, because I wanted to do whatever I could that would be best to keep me on the channel, because at the time my views were lower than the other people on the channel, and there was this rule on the SAKS where there was like a thing where you would get kicked off the channel if your views were too low. So I mentioned that if I joined online school, then I probably wouldn't be kicked off. So I said yes, because not only was the SAKS channels, or 7 Supergirls in that matter, my dream, but also it was what was paying me to live where I was at. So if I would have got kicked off the channel, I would have to move back to where I'm actually at right now and leave all my friends, which really sucked. So I joined an online school, and it sucked. And he paid for it out of his own pocket, which at the time I thought was so nice, but turns out he was just bribing me to stay on the channel. So then later on, it was a few weeks before the next trip, and he messaged me on Skype asking if I could get there a day early because he wanted to have a meeting with me. And of course I said yes, because he's my manager. So skip to the trip, we're at the hotel a day early before anybody else. Nobody would even arrive until the next morning. And he asked me to come to the group hotel room. So when I got there, he basically told me to sit down, and he talked to me about how I needed to be bound again, because apparently the photos and videos that he got when I was bound on the last trip was obvious that I was bound, and that he needed to do it this time to know that it was right, or done the right way. And obviously I had to think about it at first, because I really didn't want him to do that. So I asked him if the co-owner would be doing it or him, and he said he would be doing it. But then he mentioned that she would be in the room when it was happening. So then I was kind of easing towards, maybe it's okay. Then he also said that in the UK, it's normal. That if you're in this acting industry, that people bind people all the time, making me think that this was okay. And I was starting to ease towards yes, but I was still a little cautious and suspicious. So then he whipped out $1,000 cash out of his pocket and laid it in front of me, and told me that if I did this, I would get to keep that $1,000 cash. So he bribed me into doing this. And he also told me that I wouldn't be kicked off the channel if I did this, and that he would pay me every hour that we were in a meeting, whether it was on Skype, in real life, and every hour that we were filming on a trip. And he would pay me every hour. It was like $100 an hour or something like that. So at the time, me and my mom were very broke where we were living, and we could barely afford to pay bills. I mean, we were always almost 2 weeks late on bills every month, and power would cut out, and we would have to watch what we would pay for. I mean, we couldn't even buy food unless it was a certain price. So obviously I took the bribe because we were low on money, and we really needed the money to keep us living where we were at. And obviously I regret taking that money and that bribe. So then he had me sign a contract, and he told me that he would want to have a meeting the next day. So then the next morning came, and I got a message on Skype to come outside my hotel room. I went outside my hotel room and he was standing out there along with the co-owner, and they told me that they wanted to take me to breakfast. None of the members were in the hotel yet because it was like 7 or 8 a.m. and nobody had arrived yet. So they took me to breakfast, and this was also a bribe. Turns out the contract that I signed was actually a part of something basically making him my manager, which meant he could tell me what, he was already my manager, but this is like manager, more like agency. He could tell me what I can and can't do, whether it's what I was eating on the trip or what I would wear on the trips, how I'd make my videos, all sorts of different things. He was in control pretty much. So then after breakfast, I went back to my room, and then a few hours later, he asked me to come to the group hotel room and to bring all my sponsored outfits. So I had all of my sponsored outfits in this duffel bag that I took with me to the group hotel room. When I got there, he was the only one there. The co-manager or the co-owner of the channel wasn't there. It was just him and me. And when he let me in, he actually locked the hotel room door behind me. Like, there was a full bolt lock and everything. And I thought it was weird at the time, but I just ignored it, obviously. Okay. So then I got in there, and he told me that he needed me to change all my sponsored outfits so he could see what needed to be done, whether it was I get bound or I wear a bra or don't wear a bra. I mean, he just, it was crazy. And I thought it was really weird, so I grabbed my first outfit that was in my bag and I walked to the bathroom. And he told me that I had to change right there in front of him in the middle of the hotel room floor. And I asked him if I could change in the bathroom because it was weird, and he said, no, you need to change right there. And then I was just like, can I turn around? And he said, fine, if you want to. So I turned around and I quickly changed into my outfit as fast as I could because I was so uncomfortable, and he was watching me the entire time and I didn't know what to do. I just wanted to do what he said because I was scared that if I would have ran out the door, that he would have done worse. And he took pictures of me in the outfit, front, side, and back. So then he had me put on the next outfit, and this outfit was the one where he said I needed to be bound for. So he turned me around and removed my shirt, and I was braless as well, and he bound me in the bandaging. And not only did he bound me, but once he got all the bandaging on, he looked at me and he says, now that wasn't so bad. And then he took his hands and he went like this and brushed against them, and then he lifted them up. So then he had me change into all of the other outfits, and then we got to one of the final outfits, and then he had me try on all of the other outfits, and the final outfit was a set of PJs, or it was a one-piece PJ thing, and he told me that you could see my underwear line once I got it on. And I was like, okay. And he says, you need to take the underwear off. So I said, okay, I'm uncomfortable doing that. And then he said, you have to take them off or else I'll do them for you. And then I asked him if he could turn around. And then he got up and he came up to me and he tried to pull my underwear off. He pulled them so far that they were reaching my like lower thigh right here. And then I grabbed them out of his hand and I said, I can do it myself. And then he went and sat down and I just took them off from under my clothes, and I didn't get completely undressed. I just pulled them like off my leg from underneath the outfit, I guess, if that makes sense. And then he said next time I should just take off the whole outfit, which was so weird. So then after he took pictures of me in all the outfits, he had me take off my top, and he just took a picture of me with the binding on my chest, front, side, and back, which is already inappropriate. And then he had me change into a bandeau, one with padding and one without padding, and he took pictures of me in both of those. So then I thought I was finally done and that I could go back to my room and relax and think about what I just went through and that what he made me do. And he then went to his hotel room next door, and he got like 4, 5 different swimsuits for me to try on in front of him. So when he brought them in there, I told him, I was like, you want me to try on all of those swimsuits? And he said, yes, I want you to try them on and get used to changing in front of me. And I said, why can't I just change in the bathroom? I mean, you can't bind me for these. And he said, no, you need to change in front of me. So I did what he said, and I changed in one of the swimsuits in front of him, but I was standing backwards, so I couldn't even tell if he was watching me change into it or not. And then once I got in it, he told me to try on the other one. So I tried on that one, and then he just kept saying, try them on, until I got to the final one. And then when we got to the final one, he said, okay, now change it to a different top. And then he said, now change it to a different bottom, change to a different top, and just had me go through this pattern of tops and bottoms. And then finally he said, okay, you're done. And that was it. So then I grabbed all my stuff and I took them and put them in my duffel bag, and I went to the bathroom and changed into my normal clothes. And that was everything that happened on that day. And then the next day it was time for, well, first off, all of the members were in the hotel room, and we were all going to the gym, the gymnasium, gymnastics place, because every time we would all go to Orlando, we would go and film gymnastics videos. So every morning before we would go and to the location where we had to film at, we would meet in the group hotel room, all of the members, and sometimes all of the parents. So when I got there, everybody was in their leotards, and I didn't have my leotard yet. So I went up to him and I asked him if I could get my leotard. And then he had me follow him to his hotel room to get my leotard. And one of the members' parents actually saw him take me to his hotel room. So when we got there, he handed me my leotard, and I started to walk out to go change into it, and he told me that I had to change in front of him. And then I looked at him and I said, I'm not changing into this in front of you. And he said, if you don't do it, you will be fined. This was another thing that was in the contract, that it mentioned that if I didn't do what he said, that I would be fined $1,000, I think, which is so wrong. And just, may I mention that the contract that he had in general, everything that it held inside of it was very illegal. And also the fact that he took a picture of me in my bra and in my binding was also illegal. So then after he said that I would be fine, I said, all well. And I walked out and I changed into my leotard. And then I went back to the group hotel room. So then everything went normal that day. He tried to get pictures of me and the girl that I was sponsored BFFs with. And so now we're moving on to the next day when we filmed at the rental house. So when we filmed at the rental house, it was a normal day of filming, blah, blah, blah. But for some reason, when we were filming one of the videos, see, he hired a script writer for all the videos that we filmed together. And in the script, he would pick who said what line. So when we were filming this one video, we were all sitting at a table and he gave everybody multiple lines except me. And that is not normal for him. Usually every time we would film a video, if there was a set of lines, everybody would get a line in that scene if there were open lines. So when we were sitting at the table and he was giving everybody a line, he tried to give one of the members a line, but she said, "You haven't given Brianna a line yet." And then he looked at me, and then he looked back at her and he said, "Oh, okay, Brianna, say this line." And I said the line, and I just thought that it was very odd that it just seemed like he was being very shady towards me. And I kind of wonder if it was because I rejected changing into my leotard in front of him. And I wouldn't doubt if that was the reason. So then when we got done filming, we had filmed all our videos, and he basically was letting us go off and get in our bathing suits and go swimming in the pool. But I hadn't gotten a swimsuit yet because he had me changed in all the swimsuits so that he could pick one that I wear. And I hadn't been given one yet. So I went up to him and I asked him, I said, "What am I supposed to wear to the pool? I don't have a swimsuit." And then he looked at me in my face and he said, "You don't have to swim." And when he said that, I don't know, I just felt like he was controlling me and controlling my move. He just sounded so controlling when he said it, and it was the scariest thing. And I just went back to the room where basically when we got to a rental house, all of the girls could pick the room that they wanted to change in and lay their stuff in. So I went back to the room and I sat on the bed with one of the other members who I'm actually kind of close with. And I just started to bawl my eyes out. And she asked me what was wrong. And also, all of the other members were out of the room. They were in the pool, but she didn't want to swim for some reason. So I started crying, and she asked me what was wrong. And she said, "What's wrong?" And I just told her everything. At first, I looked at her just thinking, should I tell her, or should I keep this to myself and just tell her that I don't feel good? But part of me just wanted to get everything out of my body and tell her everything that had happened, what he'd done. And she just immediately said, "This is wrong. Why would he do that?" And then when she said that, I just knew that there was something bad about this, and that it was not normal, and that something was going to happen after this day. So after she talked to me and hugged me and she really, really helped me that day. I was so sad and depressed after all of that, and I didn't know what to do, but she really helped me, and I want to thank her for that. If you're watching this, thank you. The member that did this, who was super sweet to me and nice and caring and comforting and really helped me, was Ashlyn, and I want to thank her for that, and thank you for being there for me and continuing to be my friend after everything happened. So then after all that, we went back to the hotel, and later that night I got a message from Ashlyn to come to her hotel room. Once I got to her hotel room, her and her mom were sitting there, and they just kind of asked me what had happened, and I told her mom everything as well. And she would just ask questions, and she was like, "Brianna, you don't have to be ashamed. There's nothing wrong with that. What he did was wrong, and I shouldn't have to go through that again." So then she asked me if it was okay to bring the other moms in the room and tell them about what was happening and what had happened. And I said, "Yeah, that's fine." And once they all started coming in, they were clueless, and I could just see it on their face that they had no idea what was about to come. And she told them everything that I had told her. And while she was talking, I just started crying my eyes out, because I was already seeing where this was going, and I was terrified for my life, what this would bring to me and my mom. And I was just instant regret. I have never cried that much in my life. So once all the parents found out about it, obviously they were distraught and they were scared, and they were supporting me just as much as Ashlyn's mom was. So then after she told all of the moms about it, she brought my mom in and let her know everything, and my mom was just in distraught. I have never seen my mom like that. She looked so depressed and scared, and she just looked at me and she just told me that she loved me and that everything was going to be okay, and she gave me a hug and I hugged her, and it was terrible. So then Ashlyn's mom asked if she could bring in the dad of the group, and she did. I said she could. And when she told him everything, he said, "We have to call the cops." And when he said that, I got instant fear. I can't even explain what my face must have looked like. I've never been in a situation where a cop would have to be called on such a serious matter, and that I would be the center of that matter. But I said okay, because I knew what he did was wrong, what the manager did was wrong. But I said it was okay to call them because I knew what the manager did to me was wrong, to all of us was wrong. And he called the cops and he asked me if I would be able to put a statement and write a statement and say everything that happened, and I said yes. And honestly, all the parents were so supportive to me in the beginning, and I can't thank them enough for really helping me and my mom out through that. I just wish that now we were still all close, that my mom was close with all the parents, and that all the members were still close with each other. I just feel like after everything happened, we've just all split up. I mean, I don't remember the last time I Skyped one of the members of SSG. So then when the cops were done being called and on the way, the other members came into the room and we told them what happened, and one of them just asked why didn't I tell them, and I told her I wasn't allowed. I don't know what would have happened if I would have told you, and it was just really bad. I feel like that night we were all so close together. All of us, like all of the members and me, we were just like the closest we had ever been. Like, I feel like everything and everybody was so cliquey before any of that happened, and I just feel like after that night we just all kind of hung out, and we were actually, you know, all hanging out and talking to each other, and it was just a good feeling. But I don't think we ever hung out like that again after that, sadly. So then, a little later, the cops got to the hotel, but turns out they weren't even cops. They were actually Disney Springs security guards, which was so dumb. They sent security guards for a pedophile. I just can't believe that they sent security guards from Disney Springs instead of actual police for the matter that this was for. But once they got there, they asked me to sign a form that basically was just my statement of everything that happened and give it to them. So I did, and then they decided to go to his hotel room, and they didn't have a warrant to check his hotel room at this time, but they went to his hotel room to talk about what was happening, which I think was the biggest mistake on their behalf. They should have waited to get a warrant so when they got there they could search his hotel room for evidence. But instead they basically gave him a head start to clear all evidence, which he did clear all evidence. So then the next day came, and I woke up that morning and most members were actually gone. They had gone to Disney Springs. The only person that was actually still there was Ashlyn, and me and her decided to go wander the hotel together, and you know. So then the next day came, and when I woke up the next morning, I actually went to Skype and I messaged all of the girls asking if they wanted to hang out, because at the time I really didn't want to be alone. but turns out all of them had gone to Universal Studios. And what sucks is that I didn't even get a warning. All that I heard was the previous night they were mentioning that they wanted to go to Universal, and I asked if I could come. I mean, I wasn't even invited. I practically invited myself, but they said that they weren't sure if they were actually going to go. But then the next day when I woke up, everybody was gone. And when I say everybody, I mean everybody was gone at Universal Studios. I didn't even know they were at Universal till I saw on Instagram. It was really sad. So then me and my mom decided to go to Disney Springs to go shopping. But before we could even go shopping, the FBI came to my door and they just wanted to talk to me. So when they got there, they asked me a bunch of questions about what had happened, and they had actually asked for my swimsuits that I had because he had touched them. And luckily I had actually gotten them after we got home from the rental house, right before Ashlyn told me to come to her room and tell her mom and everything. So I gave them the swimsuits, and even with the case being over right now, I still don't have them back. Honestly, I don't even want them. It kind of upsets me that they didn't give it back to me. So then after that, I went home, and me and my mom, we had to pack everything up and move out of our house because we couldn't afford to live there. So we drove like 9 hours away back home, and I had to leave my friends without saying goodbye. It just makes me upset because I had to move away from my closest friends. And now me and those friends have actually kind of drifted because of me moving and because of what he caused to happen. And it just makes me so upset because we were so close. Not only me and my friends where I lived, but also me and the members. We were all so close, but now all of that's just over. And it just hasn't gotten better. I'm not going to let anything that happened stop me from being who I am, or from doing what I want, or from dressing the way I want to dress. What happened to me obviously was a very traumatic experience, and I will never forget it, and it will always hurt me. And I can't help that, but I won't let that put me at stake and cause me to not be myself and cause me to not dress the way I want to dress and be the person I want to be and post the pictures and videos that I want to post. This happened not too long ago to me, but I have had time to cope with it and try and get myself back on track. And honestly, the amount of times I've cried over this is uncountable. Honestly, I've lost all of the tears that I have in my body just from crying over this in the past. I know in this video that I haven't cried as much as most people would over a matter like this, but just because I'm not crying doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It hurts so much to talk about this. But one day I will get over this and I will be able to get my life back on track, and hopefully that'll start soon. But it's just begun with making this video for you guys. I love you guys so much, and I want you to know that if you or anybody else you know is going through something similar to what I went through, or even worse, like even small things like bullying or eating disorders or just anything that could hurt them, or if they have been hurt, I want you to know that you are not alone. I am a victim as well. We are victims, and you can get through this. It is not the end of the world. Just talk to somebody that you trust, and don't be afraid to come forward. I have been so scared to come forward about this video, but I'm finally doing it. I am finally doing it. It's taken me so long to do this. I've filmed this video 4 other times, and this is my 5th time, because I just feel like you guys deserve to know the truth, and I'm so happy that you finally do. And just please don't bombard the other members with questions about the SAKS because of this video. Just stay happy and supportive, be supportive to all of us and let us cope, and yeah. But I'm gonna end this video here for you guys. I love you all so, so much, and I will see you in my next video when I'm a lot more happy. Bye guys.